An international threat to religious freedom and free speech. Hi, I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Joining me today is Harry Mahet, senior litigation counsel for Liberty Counsel. We're going to be talking today about a significant case in which, Harry, you recently, along with some other students from Liberty University School of Law, prepared a comprehensive motion, I think 100 pages or more, to dismiss this case against Reverend Scott Lively in Massachusetts. It's a case where he went to Uganda to speak on abortion and homosexuality several years ago. Now he's the subject of a lawsuit that is alleging he committed crimes against humanity, against some vague international norm. This is a significant threat, if it were successful, to religious freedom and free speech.
Absolutely, Matt. The plaintiff in the case is a group that calls itself Sexual Minorities Uganda, or SMUG, and they are alleging that when Scott Lively was in Uganda in 2009 to share his biblical view on homosexuality, he actually committed crimes against humanity of persecution, the most heinous of international human rights crimes. And so they have brought suit against him in a United States court, not in Uganda, but in a U.S. court, seeking to hold him liable for this crime against humanity.
Well, it's clear that they could not have any cause of action in Uganda, even if they allege what they say is true, which is not. I mean, he just went there and he spoke on homosexuality and abortion. They could not have a cause of action if they used American law, the United States law, because he'd have a First Amendment right to be able to engage in nonviolent political speech. So what they've done is they have taken this group from Uganda, filed suit in federal court in Massachusetts, alleging under the so-called Alien Tort Statute that they can use this vague, essentially undefined international norm of crimes against humanity and then silence him here because of this alleged crime.
Exactly. It's a frivolous attempt to get around the First Amendment protections for a United States citizen and to hold him liable according to some amorphous international law principle, which, by the way, they pull that principle out of what's called the Rome Statute, an international treaty that the United States expressly rejected. The president, I believe Clinton, initially signed it, but did not submit it to the Senate for ratification. Instead, President Bush actually affirmatively withdrew the United States signature because they didn't want the U.S. citizens to be subjected to those international law norms. Well, now we have SMUG coming in and asking a court to do what Congress and what the president have already decided should not be done.
You know, it's amazing in this particular case. Let's talk a little bit about just the substance of the case and then come back to the implications of this particular situation. But they allege that he came there in 2009. He spoke on homosexuality. And then they put all these other things into the complaint. And one of them is that one of the former persons with SMUG was ultimately killed, and somehow they say that that was related to Scott Lively's message. What they fail to say is that, yes, he was killed, but he was killed because he was engaging in forced sex with another male. He was in a homosexual liaison with a prostitute, and there was some problems that was happening because of that forced sexual activity, and the person who was the male prostitute ultimately killed him. It has nothing to do with Scott Lively's position on homosexuality, nothing whatsoever. And they don't even try to connect those dots, but they throw it in just like you're going to just cavalierly accept that, well, because somebody had a problem over here, therefore this person doesn't accept homosexuality, it must be his fault.
That's right, Matt. You know, their complaint, it's 47 pages, and it's so deceptive. They pull little bits and pieces out of what Scott Lively has said to make him appear to be this hateful homophobe, and then they pull these isolated instances of violence in Uganda and try to lay it all at Scott Lively's feet. But it's all a web of deception because, as you've said, you know, the proof is in the pudding, so to speak.
Yeah, so what that, I mean, and then so with those allegations where there's no dots connected, and now they're wanting to silence a pastor here in America under this treaty that we've never signed on to and we've specifically rejected. If that were to be successful, then it means that every time you travel to some foreign country and you speak on biblical morality or some other issue that someone disagrees with you on, all of a sudden you could be the target of a crime against humanity. I mean, the chilling effect of this is stunning. This is an organization that SMUG is represented by the Center for Constitutional Rights in New York, and it is partially funded by George Soros. They have used international law to try to silence people, not just here in America, but around the world.
And Matt, the implications are even more breathtaking than what you've just said, because you don't actually have to travel to Uganda. But you and I on this show, if somebody on the internet watches us from Uganda or some other country, if a pastor has an internet ministry or a television ministry and he preaches on homosexuality in the United States, someone watching in Uganda or Sweden or some other country could claim that they have violated international law, and therefore are no longer under the protections of the First Amendment, even though they were in the United States.
Yeah, this is unbelievable. You know, when we started Liberty Counsel in 1989, from that time to the present, there has been a progression of different kinds of strategies to ultimately silence religious free exercise and free speech. This is one of those new horizons, using international law to do so, knowing that here in America we have the protections of the First Amendment. The First Amendment, you know, you break it down to this very simple proposition: sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And essentially the First Amendment, it only works if it is protecting someone's speech with which you disagree. If it protects platitudes and niceties, then you don't need a First Amendment. You just need some benevolent person who's in power that just happens to agree with you. The problem is when that person changes and they no longer agree with you, that's when you need the First Amendment to protect your particular viewpoint.
That's right. Fuzzy speech doesn't need protection. It's the so-called offensive speech that needs protection, and that's what these people are after, to try to squelch and to basically silence opinions with which they disagree. Fortunately, though, what we have told this court in 109 pages is that the First Amendment doesn't stop at the border. It travels with you as an American citizen anywhere across the world, as it did with Scott Lively in Uganda. And so this case ought to be thrown out as a frivolous lawsuit.
Well, it's, to our knowledge, the first of its kind in the country that is using this to silence biblical or morality-related speech pertaining to marriage, homosexuality, and abortion. There's also a case that's actually going to be re-argued at the United States Supreme Court in the fall, the Kiobel case. And that case may ultimately dispose of this altogether, because this alien tort statute had a purpose at one time where someone who was injured in a foreign area or a foreigner could file suit here in America because of that particular tort. Or if they were injured here in America, they could—
That's right.
If they were from another country, they were traveling here, they had an injury here in America, maybe like a motor vehicle accident, how do they ultimately file suit for recovery here in America? The Alien Tort Statute allowed them to file suit in an American court using American law for an injury that you and I could have actually pursued in a court as well. It is not designed to all of a sudden come up with this brand new law where you couldn't recover in your foreign state and you couldn't recover in the United States, but now you're recovering under some international vague norm, a treaty for which we've never even signed on to.
That's right. The courts have been clear that the Alien Tort Statute is not an automatic delegation of lawmaking power to the unaccountable legislatures of the world. We continue to retain our sovereignty and our freedoms as American citizens, and what the Supreme Court is looking in Kiobel is whether or not the act, the Alien Tort Statute, could be used to reach conduct that takes place entirely outside the country.
And that's what is being attempted in this case. We'll continue to keep you involved in this matter. You can continue to pray for Liberty Counsel and also financially support the ministry of Liberty Counsel. All that we're doing in this particular case is being done pro bono, and the only way that we can do it is through your financial support of Liberty Counsel. You can also go to the Liberty Counsel website, and we have a couple of resources. This is one of our newest books on our publishing arm, the New Revolution Publishers, Only One Mommy by Rena Linda Valtzen. And also this book here is Same-Sex Marriage, Putting Every Household at Risk. It's a book that I wrote. You can ask for those books as well as other resources by going to Liberty Counsel's website, lc.org, or you can call the toll-free number, 800-671-1776. That's 800-671-1776. And while you're there, you can also ask for the Patriot's Handbook on American Liberty with the Constitution, the Declaration, and a message from Patrick Henry, Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death.